Constructive Voices, the podcast for the construction people, with news, views, and expert interviews.
Hi, and welcome to Constructive Voices. I'm Steve Randall, and on this episode, we're talking about something that will play a major role in the construction industry going forward, and is already, the use of robotics.
It's a coworker. I like to call it it's a collaborative robot or a cobot. They're there to do the tasks that are the unsafe tasks, the repetitive tasks, the ones that you don't want to have a person having to do that kind of work on a day-to-day basis.
We've deployed Spot into a crumbling building. We know the roof is potentially coming in at any point. Rather than risk putting somebody in that space or a team in that space to do evaluation and survey, we've deployed Spot. I can put a price on Spot. Spot costs me X amount to purchase in or lease. What you can't put a price on is a human life.
That's David Burczyk, Construction Robotics Lead at Trimble Connected Construction, and Mark Crawford, Business Manager at Balfour Beatty. They'll be talking with Henry McDonald about how robotics are being used on site now and the potential for the future. Plus, of course, Peter Finn, TV's Pete the Builder, will be with me in just a moment.
Constructive Voices media partner in Ireland and the United Kingdom is Construction Industry News. Since 2002, Construction Industry News has been focused on the very latest projects and developments within the UK and Ireland.
So, Pete, how's things with you today?
Steve, how are you? Good to talk again.
Yeah, always good to talk. We're going to be talking about something which, I wouldn't consider myself a geek. I don't know about you, but robots are, even for non-geekies, very exciting, I think.
Yeah, well, look, our world has changed in many ways, and we often talk about this on our podcast here. One of the major things that has happened is that technology has pretty much gone through the roof, and along with technology has come the advancement in robots. The robotics in a lot of industries has been massively advanced to help increase productivity, and like anything that's new, it takes a little bit of time before it becomes mainstream, but then it starts to filter down into the everyday life, and that's what's happening. We are beginning to move towards a lifestyle where there's robotics in construction.
Yeah, and let's just frame this in the context of the talent shortage. And we've talked about this many, many times. Our guests over the recent episodes have been flagging this up as well, how difficult it is to get people into the construction industry. And we're not saying that there won't be jobs in the construction industry. Of course there will. Some of them may be different jobs to the ones we have now. But certainly using robotics, using any sort of technology that can work with the humans in construction may plug some of those gaps and actually get the whole industry to be able to move at the pace that it wants to move at.
There's just no doubt about it. At this moment in time, we do not have the labour supply that we had in the industrial era or the labour supply that we had, 10 years ago. We're big supporters of getting people into construction, but it's not an easy task. How do you combat that? You basically reduce the amount of labour that's required on site, and you eliminate some of the jobs that humans are doing, and you get a device that can do it. And robots can come in and they can assist. But I think the best way to describe this is we shouldn't really be calling them robots at this point in time. We should be calling them cobots. Got a really interesting interview coming up about Spot, the robot, which is a robot which is being used on site at the moment for Balfour Beatty. And what it is doing, it's making sure that they're maximising the productivity on site for the humans, and then they're seeing what work they can use the robot to do for them. And that's going to be industry wide, and it is becoming industry wide. So it's not a case of robots coming in here to take over and take other people's jobs. To start off with, we have a huge shortage of labour, and it's about just eliminating certain jobs that are being done at the moment that, let's be honest, can be quite unsafe or can be quite time consuming. And if you've got a mechanism to be able to get those jobs done quicker, and you've got a mechanism to get them done more safely and more accurately by using something like a robot, well then why wouldn't you do it?
Absolutely. And it's not about, as you say, it's not about reducing the jobs, because there are jobs there that aren't being filled because there aren't people to do them. But these new jobs will bring other talents into the construction industry. That old image of a man with some tools will still be there, but at the same time, there will be men, women coming in with all kinds of different skills, robotic engineers, people who are doing all kinds of different activities relating to construction that aren't perhaps traditional construction jobs.
Yeah, absolutely. Like it's advancement. It's taking steps forward in so many different aspects of what we do. There's not going to be, you think you said it quite well there, there's not going to be an android type of a robot that looks like a human and it's got a tool belt on it and it's walking around doing what humans do. That's not going to be the case. There's going to be like single task construction robots, more frequently used. They're already out there. I've seen, videos myself of a robotic arm on the back of a truck that's laying blocks, and the accuracy and the speed and the safety that's involved in this is like off the charts. They're doing welding, they're carrying out, demolition works in really dangerous areas. They're unmanned, so a person can operate them like a digger or, some sort of an excavator remotely. And again, it's about how we collaborate with these. There's no way that a robot is ever going to come in and take a full charge of a building site and just, start sending out smaller robots to do the job the way we would see in some movies. It's going to be how we integrate and how we use the robots or the cobots to help our industry overcome challenges when it comes to health and safety, when it comes to accessibility, it comes to accuracy, it comes to communication, it comes to obviously the speed of work. So there's so many different advantages that we can get from this. And look, we're going to hear the interview now, and I think it's going to open up a lot of different subjects. And I think people, once they hear this interview, will see how this is a positive thing. This is a very positive thing that's coming into our industry.
Okay, Pete, we'll talk again shortly, but let's meet our guests who are talking with Henry McDonald.
I'm David Burczyk. I'm the Construction Robotics Lead for Trimble. So I'm heading up the overall integration of the Trimble solutions with the Spot robotic platform.
I'm Mark Crawford. I'm the business manager for Balfour Beatty, looking after digital and survey.
Let's talk about the Spot robot. Can you explain how it was developed and where?
Sure. The Spot robot was developed by Boston Dynamics. It's a platform that they've been researching for probably about 30 years now. So it's one of the more mature robotic platforms out there for use in the industry. The whole idea behind it was to investigate quadruped type of robots that could be used in different situations, going across different types of terrains. And so they based a lot of the design around just, how did nature solve this problem for, moving about a different environment? And that's where the whole kind of legged approach came in, as opposed to wheeled approach that you see with some of the other types of robotic applications. Came out to the marketplace as a commercial application about 2 years ago. The application that we're using, which is the Spot Enterprise model, that's been out on the market now for about a year or so, but it's being used across different industries for different applications.
Is there many other prototypes around like it, or is it unique?
There's other types of robots out there that you'll see there that they are similar in look to what Boston Dynamics has. Boston Dynamics has probably the most mature platform out there for the use of robotics, just because of how long that they've been researching this type of application on the marketplace. They had two versions of the robot available. One was called Spot Explorer, and the other one is Spot Enterprise. And Spot Explorer was kind of the first version to come out onto the marketplace. That one's actually starting to sunset now. It's been used primarily in kind of research applications and academic applications, but the full commercial application being used on job sites and different industries is the Spot Enterprise robot. Both have the same form factor. Really, the differences are just kind of firmware changes between the two applications.
I think we had a similar sort of experience. I joined 2 years ago and came into it, and I was told, we're looking at robotics. And I was like, brilliant. Having already seen Spot in a previous life, I've done Trimble Dimensions. I've done some of the showcases around the Trimble sort of business and the environment is, Spot's out there, but you come to certainly into the UK environment, health and safety regulations dictate to drive us one way and constrain us and confine us, but there's also an opportunity to change the way we operate. And the robotic platforms we were looking at 2 years ago were like David said, it wasn't even quadrupeds. We were looking at tracked units, we were looking at wheeled units, and they are great solutions, and people put a lot of hard work and R&D and effort into it. And the challenge for us is always not that it's not the right solution or a great solution. It's how do we apply that to our business site and our construction. And bearing in mind, Balfour Beatty is a multi-contractor, so we operate across the US. We operate in the UK and we operate as a joint venture in Gammon. And within that, certainly within the UK where I'm focused is, we do construction, we do building M&E work, we do highways, we do rail, we do utilities, we do ground investigation. So there's a whole scope of works. And the big thing for Balfour Beatty is always, can we ever find a solution that we can wide scale deploy? And I think that's where we ended up with the Boston solution. And within 6 months of me starting, I was in touch with the team from Trimble saying, look, I think we can build a business case. In fact, I know we can build a business case. And it might have taken us 6 months longer than we expected or wanted it to. But, the sign-up's there. And we're very fortunate. We took delivery of a unit last year. We started to work with David and the team and start to understand those applications. So taking that the theory side and we think it can do this and we think it should do this and going, okay, no, it actually can. And we start to see the value, which is what we did on other platforms and gone, let's deploy it, let's trial it. And we have that environment to do so, I suppose.
What practical missions can the robot carry out on building sites, construction areas, factories, and other workplaces?
I think certainly for us, and I understand what Boston have in mind, and I understand what Trimble have in mind, and I think what we sort of went, actually, in theory, it can undertake any surveying, monitoring or capture activity on any site. There are certain limitations and restrictions. You could say doors, but actually Spot comes with a manipulator arm, and depending on what the payload you put on. So we've been working predominantly with the scanning payload. So we've been using the Trimble X7 workflow in doing reality capture. So we're doing high survey grade capture on a repetitive and scalable basis so that we deploy it in. Traditionally, you'd pay for somebody to come in and scan your project once, maybe at the start, maybe at the end, or you do it periodically every other month or whatever. It's an expensive cost. It's not something that's normally budgeted for. With Spot, our immediate was, well, actually, we could do this every hour, we could do this every day, we could do this every week, and we get a much clearer and proactive picture of our project, and the accuracies are there, and we can do a lot of that without mobilization costs. In theory, I don't need to get anybody out of bed to do it. We're working towards those steps of autonomy, don't get me wrong, but the biggest one for us and the real focus for us is you can put Spot in a place where you don't want to put a person and still be able to achieve the same results. So,
such as, for example,
confined spaces. So, we don't like to put people in confined spaces. Wherever possible, we try and eliminate or mitigate a risk to put somebody in the confined space because of the risks, the health and safety risks of entrapment, gases, everything that can come with it. So we find a way to do it. What we currently do is we traditionally used to use a tripod, invert that tripod, stick a total station down, but you'd get a very limited view. Instead, and you can have Spot walk along a culvert. It's in a confined space. The Trimble X7 is phenomenal in low light or no light environments, and we've done some case study work in closed doors with no lighting in, and we can get a full picture of a point cloud and photogrammetry that comes out of it that tells us exactly where things are. And I've not had to put anybody at risk. It's the same at working at height. We've deployed Spot into a crumbling building. We know the roof is potentially coming in at any point. Rather than risk putting somebody in that space or a team in that space to do evaluation and survey, we've deployed Spot. He's walked through a door. Without sort of getting too extreme about it, I can put a price on Spot. Spot costs me X amount to purchase in or lease or however anybody wants to do it. What you can't put a price on is a human life. It's an expensive, don't get me wrong, it's an expensive cost, but it's a cost that is bared upon a company because we see massive returns of investment back on it as part of our working solution.
So in terms of construction, we have this problem in the business. We know this here. It could reduce the risk to human life on sites that can often be dangerous, that do have potential lethal possibilities.
Yeah.
Would you say that's fair?
Absolutely, 100%. And it's not just the risk to life, it's the early stages of that. I think the biggest cause of injury or health and safety stats, certainly in the UK market, is all around slips, trips and falls on a construction site now. Whether that's walking over sleepers on a railway track bed, whether that's going up and down steps or scaffolding or any structure, or walking up and down a stockpile. Individuals walk up and down stockpiles to take survey measurements for volume calculations. Spot can do that same process and be giving me the results instantaneously without me having anybody going up and down and risking a slip, trip, fall occurrence, incident sort of happening. We've worked with Spot going up and down scaffolding stairs. We've worked with Spot going up and down open staircases. So yeah, it works great with solid because you've got solid concrete staircase going up and down, but we've worked with the open construction style staircases that sit on the outside external face of the building. Spot gets up and down there, no problem at all, whilst also still carrying an expensive scanner at the same time. So we don't have to move Spot, then manipulate it, and we can Spot goes off on its pre-programmed walk, goes up and down the stairs, and it's capturing this data, and this data is available immediately. I'm not waiting a day, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days for it to be downloaded, to be transferred, to be processed, and the Trimble workflow is phenomenal. It does in-field registration, so you get cloud-to-cloud registration. There's a lot less manual manipulation afterwards, and our benefit is we can visualize and share our work site and project progress from anybody on almost a daily basis, really.
Could there be an advantage, for example, I know people have done this recently in the building trade, for sending Spot into a building which may have a lot of asbestos in it, for instance, that it could detect the presence. How would it do that?
We haven't done it yet, but we work up at Sellafield. The Sellafield company, organisation up there, have worked with Spot. They put it in a radiation suit, and they've sent it into its highly radiated areas for it to take radiation detection readings and examine. And you can look at it uses a camera. You could as a different payload. You can look at your dial outputs for monitoring. And that live camera stream is coming back through into a control room, so you can walk through a radiated building, a building filled with asbestos. A building, like I said, again, the confined space element where you might have inert gases that at any point could explode. And you've got to sort of think about those elements. The camera allows you to still stream live feed into that through the connectivity part. I think there's a really good video where, a sensor alarm goes off and the team react to it, say, normally you would call out, you'd go in, you'd have to say, let's reset they send and deploy Spot. Now, I'll be really honest. I met that video. I was like, brilliant. Wouldn't it be fantastic? You go, is it real? And that's always, it's a marketing, but is it real? And I can safely say it is real. We've seen it in action. We've seen it work where we've done, it's a trial. Don't get me wrong. We've not used it in as an alarm. We've deployed Spot on its own yet because we're not quite there, but we've gone, okay, let's trigger it. Off it goes to do a workflow path. Can we get that information back? And that's where it comes into its own. If we can remove a person, not replace the person, but that person operates from a place of safety and the robot goes in its place, that's got to be a win in anybody's eyes. In
your promotion video, you talk about Spot being a co-worker. Is there any danger that Spot and the other robots like it that will go into industries like construction could replace employees, or can you ensure workers that it's not a pioneer project to take away their jobs, it's a project to save their lives and make their jobs easier?
Yeah, that's really what robotics is for. What the use of Spot is, and Mark has said it as well, is it's a coworker. I like to call it's a collaborative robot or a cobot, and it's there to supplement the teams that are on site. One of the biggest problems that you see in the industry right now is just the ability to have, there's a lack of labor that they can find to do a lot of these jobs. And what the robots are doing is they're there to do the tasks that are the unsafe tasks, the repetitive tasks, or even, just the ones that you don't want to have a person having to do that kind of work on a day-to-day basis. Let the teams on site focus on the higher value tasks that have to be done, and then let the robots take over with the tasks that are more redundant or repetitive, to where they can go out and capture the information on a daily or repetitive basis. And so that's really what the robots start to do, is they supplement the teams on site, but they're not replacing the teams on site.
Do you think some of the apocalyptic predictions of writers who've recently been charting what they call the rise of the robots, is that apocalypse exaggerated? Or in fact, will robots enhance and help human workers in construction projects and other areas in the general world of work?
Yeah, I personally think that they're going to enhance and help workers, and that they're going to help make construction more efficient. I'm sure Mark has an opinion as well on it, but yeah, in my feeling, I think it's really what you're seeing is an evolution of the workflows currently on job sites. What you're seeing with a lot of these robots is that it's kind of an evolution of the virtual design and construction teams, where you start to have the ability to deploy robots on multiple sites, and then you can kind of consolidate your teams into one centralized location. We're doing things with like a remote operator application that would allow you to remotely operate Spot without having to be physically on the same job site as Spot. So where you start to have kind of like a command center in like your main headquarters building, your virtual design and construction teams could be focused in one location and then have robots deployed in multiple projects where they could then remote in and start to do their kind of inspection tasks and things of that nature without physically having to be on the job site. I really see it as an enhancement of the process, and then also just kind of an evolution of the processes that are being done today.
We don't see it as replacing anybody. What we see, David called it exactly, there's finite availability on labour and resource availability, whether that's skilled, unskilled, whatever it is. The UK as well as the global market suffers. So Spot very much complements that workforce and in the ways that David mentioned. And interestingly, the business case I wrote in Balfour Beatty, one of the questions came out around, it's just replacing people. How's it going to be met with by people on a work site? And we took it to a work site, but one of our biggest in the UK. We work with, I think we have about 96 subcontractors on this one site. So it's not just Balfour Beatty. We exposed it to 96 other companies and their workforce. And not a single person said, what's that doing here? It's just going to replace me. It's to take over the robots and everything like that. Everybody understood. When you explained how we were applying it and deploying it, they went, yeah, it makes sense. If it does this for me, if it does that for me, then, and it was amazing how quickly, within an hour or a couple of hours, actually, everybody got the phones out. Nice, shiny robot, brilliant. It's all fantastic. And the world is taking over. But within a couple of hours, by the time I got to lunch and the afternoon sessions, the Spot was walking around and barely anybody batted an eyelid to it. It became normal almost within that short period of time. And it works in conjunction with the other tasks that, like David said, are more skilled. We've all seen it. When we first deployed Spot around, we went, have you seen War of the Worlds on Netflix? It looks just like that and stuff like that. It's all taking over. And, I think I had about 4 or 5 people say it looks like it. And I went, yeah, it might do. But it's not, it's here to help. We could all sit here and go, no, it's never going to take over. It's never going to do anything. I think you put the technology in the wrong hands, anything's a possibility, in reality. But I think if we look at the genuine application, if we look at the genuine build and where the world and industry is today, it's only there as an aid and a benefit to people, to business. And like David said, Balfour Beatty, we're a multi-billion pound turnover company, but we operate in construction on 2%, 3% margin. By having the capabilities and the tools in our toolbox, to deploy when we need them and give us the accuracy and the efficiencies, that starts to take those inefficiencies out, the quality, the accuracy, the repeatability, the scalability, and all of a sudden that 2% becomes 3%, becomes 4%. And actually, we're starting to manage its cost mitigation, its error. We don't have to rework things. Robots will not take over necessarily because we're planning control centers, we're planning hubs where we might have 4 spots. And it's not, bearing in mind, it's not just Spot. Spot feeds into the autonomy program that Caterpillar and Finning are looking at for fully autonomous excavators and dozers. Spot should work with those 2 items of plant and be able to do construction level validation as we're doing work progress. And it all comes back to a hub. So I believe we'll see robotics expand, but there is still always going to be the need for a human. And I think we're really clear on that is AI, or so-called AI and artificial intelligence, is a long way away. And again, even that needs a human to give it the data to start to make those calculations. So I think we're pretty safe from a War of the Worlds takeover or anything drastic. Certainly in my lifetime, anyway. After that, it's fine.
Well, it won't start on the War of the Worlds. Won't start on a building site. Back to the bottom line. The bottom line in the business, money. And has any cost benefit analysis been done to see how Spot will save money whilst raising productivity?
It certainly has from my perspective, and I can say that safely because in order for Balfour Beatty to invest in it, I had to write a business case. I had to justify why would we invest X amount of money, and we explained how we would do it, what we thought the benefits would be. We focused on 3 sections. We looked at the mobility, the autonomy, and then also then sensor integration and reality capture. And we sort of said, actually, we can save X amount. We estimated between, I think, 12 and 15% cost improvement because of the performance on doing the continual site progress monitoring. So we're just talking about taking photos or doing photo capture. If we can do that every single day, then we can understand exactly where our project is. We can understand that we don't end up putting roof tiles in when the M&E above the ceiling grids isn't correct, because we can see today's work tomorrow rather than a week down the line. So, our cost performance improves. We estimate between a 6 and 8% saving on rework. So again, we can capture the levels, so if we're saving 8% on a project cost of $500,000, $1 million, or in our case, 50 to 100 million, then that's a significant sum. They were the 2 biggest ones for us that we really want to focus on, and we are focusing on, is cost management and saving that rework element. If we can save between 10 and 15% on an overall cost per project, it's not cost us 0.0001% of a project. It pays for itself pretty quickly.
Now, how much battery life does Spot have? How long could the robot operate in a working day on site?
Its battery life is 90 minutes. And then the charging time for that, it's about 2 hours to get a full charge back. And in order to enable an autonomous workflow and allow Spot to work throughout the day, there's a docking station that's incorporated with Spot. So as it goes out, it runs a mission. It can come back to that docking station, sit down and start to charge. And then there's a data connection on the back of that dock that you can then plug into that. And then as the robot is charging, you can pull the data off that was just collected during a mission. And so part of the work that we're doing with Boston Dynamics is really determining, depending on what the different payloads are that you have on the back of Spot. So in the case of the scanner, how many scans can you get captured in one mission before you have to come back, sit down at the dock? And then, the idea is, how many scans can you capture throughout a working day? So we base a working day off of about, an 8-hour cycle. So, how long can you go out, run a mission, come back, dock? Where's the placement of that dock need to be in order to optimize the mission times and things of that nature? Then that way we can provide guidance to customers in terms of, what can they expect to get, throughout a working day. But what we're finding in our studies right now is we're running missions with Boston Dynamics of about 120 scans just to see what kind of timing we get there. But you can expect, to run anywhere between, maybe 80 to 120 scans. But the whole idea of having this docking station is to take, the runtime of the batteries out of the equation and really enable that autonomous workflow.
Now, another very important area, which was touched on earlier, was health and safety. Now, in relation to the robot itself, what's the technology there to ensure it doesn't itself cause accidents or crash into human workers or, knock things down? Yeah, so
built into Spot is obstacle avoidance. So it has, the capability to, it's dynamically sensing its environment as it walks through the environment. And so as changes occur, it actually has obstacle avoidance built into it. So if somebody walks into its path as it's performing a mission, it'll deviate around that person. It'll find, a way to get around the obstacle without running into it. It won't deviate off of its path more than about, based off of the area that you've defined as the walking path. It has a zone of about 1.5 meters on either side of its center line to give it some flexibility around how to find a way around obstacles. But it won't go anywhere that you haven't programmed it to go. So, Spot won't just randomly just start to walk around the job site. So you have to teach it where you want it to go. And then it's got flexibility to then navigate around obstacles based off of where you've taught it to go. And then some of the intelligence that's being built into Spot as well is that as you go along and you have a mission, you define what are called waypoints along that mission. That's where you want Spot to perform some type of action. And as these waypoints get collected, then Spot has in its memory the ability to kind of connect the dots between all the different waypoints. And based off of where you've walked it through a site, then it can start to kind of optimize its path around different obstacles. So it can find the most efficient path to get to each waypoint that it needs to go to. And then also as new obstacles come up in its path, it can find an alternative route based off of the areas that you've taught it to walk. But those are all kind of the intelligence that's built into Spot today. And then, part of the work that we're doing with Boston Dynamics and working with customers like Balfour Beatty is that as you're out on the job sites and new, conditions come up or new situations come up, then we start to learn, okay, how do we need to improve the firmware on spot so that it can be more dynamic in its environment? So that's kind of an ongoing area that continues to go as we start to work with more and more customers.
Is it fair to say that it can, and I know this is a controversial word, but learn its way around a construction site, for instance, a project, and it can start to learn what is the best optimum route or safest way to go?
Yeah, it will learn that based off of where you've taught it to go. So it's not going to just on its own decide, okay, I'm going to walk off in this direction. It's only going to walk wherever you've told it can walk. So once you've taught it a path, when it's learning, what's a more optimum route to go, it's going to be based off of areas that you've already taken it. So as long as it's been taken to that environment, it's mapped the conditions there, then it can use it to kind of optimize its workflows. But it's not going to go off and just independently make a choice that, okay, I'm going to go down these set of stairs, even though you never told me that I could go down those stairs. It doesn't have that capability. And
presumably the control centers will be able, if something did go wrong, to switch it off very quickly, remotely.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you can have it remotely. Into the software that's operating Spot today, there's an e-stop button that's built into the application. So if there's a situation happening where it's an unsafe operation, you hit the e-stop button and that cancels the current mission, and then Spot will automatically power down and just sit down on the job site right where it's at.
Can this is a time when there's more of these robots and the unit costs are driven down for people in the industry who buy them?
Yeah, absolutely. As things start to scale, you'll see costs start to come down. We saw it with scanning. Scanning is an area of work that I did at Trimble prior to getting to robotics. When scanning first came out into the market, that was a six-figure sum that you had to invest in order to purchase that. And now, the costs for scanning are in line with the cost that you get for purchasing a total station. These are all tools that are used on projects now on a regular basis. So yeah, as the technology gets developed, definitely you'll see costs start to come down.
And for the both of you, really, and this is the long view, speaking into the future, how far into it can you envisage that the likes of Spot will be ubiquitous presence on building projects around the world?
So I would envision it, within 5 years, this becomes a tool that you start to see that it's a tool, and the novelty of having either an application like Spot or any of the other robotic applications that you're seeing coming out into the construction industry, those will start to become tools that are used on the job, for different workflows and things of that nature. So I think the novelty of having a robot on site will wear off, and it's just what types of applications we'll start to see as it gets employed more and more.
I definitely agree with that. I think we had Spot last year. We took it out. It was a novelty for a couple of hours, and then the novelty was gone. The commercial leads were involved. We presented to project directors. We presented to health and safety. They were all on board within a couple of hours. And I think certainly from a Balfour Beatty perspective, we have that many use case or potential use case applications that I am pushing David and sort of going, okay, brilliant. We're here now, but when can we release this firmware? When can we do this bit? When can we do that bit? And we're trying to push people and Trimble and Boston. And ironically, I was talking to Brian Ringley at Boston Dynamics before this call, sort of going, okay, what's the next iteration? Because we're ready to make those part of our sort of standard toolbox, make them a business as usual. As David said, sort of a cobot, they are an employee of Balfour Beatty. They're nothing different. They're nothing unusual. They can probably actually help our productivity because they can work at night when we're all asleep, and we can still go through that. So yeah, very much on the 5-year timeline. I'll be honest, I'm pushing for 3 to 5. So we're trying to get them pretty quickly. We've got the application, we've got the need for it, and going back to an earlier point, there is a finite amount of labour, and you can't just suddenly magic up a number of 18 to 50-year-olds to go come and work for us. That in itself it's a finite resource. So the more we can get these, and as David says, the price comes down. Scanning used to be expensive, but look at the price of your batteries and hybrids and everything like that. The more wide scale and more adopted it becomes, more affordable it becomes. It's not cheaper because it is a valuable product, but it becomes more affordable. But it's up to contractors. It's up to Principle One contractors like Balfour Beatty and others in the UK and across the world to drive that adoption. It shouldn't be down to our contractors. Don't get me wrong, they can do it, and we talk to some of them and they're interested, but we have to build it into our workflow. We have to build it into our site designs, and that's the one thing I thought about. Your health and safety question about could it cause accidents? How does it stop causing an accident? And it's not just on spot to do that. We talk about a safe working site. Now, it should be a safe working site, whether it's a person or whether it's a robot. The advantage with Spot is you can take your site 3D, 2D design that's in CAD or whatever format you have it in. You can insert that and insert it into Spot effectively and go, this is my site layout today. This is my site layout tomorrow because we're changing this. We're changing partition walls. That's how it operates. It's not just down to the robotics, and this is why I say it doesn't replace people. You still have to design or operate within a safe working environment. Just because it's a robot doesn't mean it should be treated any differently. It's thinking about how do you incorporate that in, so charging points, etc. But that becomes part of our business as usual. Our projects, we're already thinking about, okay, if I've got a multi-level project, how many docking stations do I need for Spot? Can it go up and down 2 floors? Can it cover 2 floors in its day? And they're the sort of challenges we're thinking about today, rather than thinking about it in a couple of years' time.
And how many do you have operating at the moment?
We've got 2 operating at the moment. So we did an initial investment last year. So 12 months after with me being in the business, and we very quickly spoke to Trimble, and it's been something we've been talking about with Boston. So we're running 2. We're looking at a lot of it's around the reality capture and the accuracy. But we're pushing David quite hard on additional developments of technology and in other payload integrations because we've got the need and the desire to do it. So we're at 2. I'm not going to lie. I have budgeted for another couple this year, shall I say? So our business is sold on it. For us, it's the slow integrations. No point throwing them at our business going, you're going to use these. We have to make sure they're deployed properly. Everybody understands the journey we go on, and David and the team at Trimble are rapidly enhancing the workflow, what the solutions are available and how it automates, how it recognizes, how it charges, how it processes. And, if I deployed 6 today, we'd have the same almost like hurdles. So if we do 1, then 2, and we go over those hurdles, then we know, and we're working with Trimble to give them feedback going, this process flow doesn't quite work, or I did a journey and it kind of lost itself a little bit here, and Trimble are going away going, brilliant, okay, we've got real world feedback in terms of saying this works, this doesn't, and that is only going to end up with a better product for the wider market to utilize.
But one day, not so far into the future, Spot the robot and its could be as ubiquitous on a building site as a JCB digger.
Why not?
Absolutely. that's the intent. It's like this becomes a tool. It's just which tool do you need to get the job done? And part of what we're pushing to do, and Mark was alluding to that as well, is that we're doing other payloads as well, because there's different workflows that you're going to use Spot for. So reality capture is what we're focused on right now. But we've also got total stations and GNSS antennas, and all that's for doing construction data collection on the job site. So you'll have 3 different types of payloads that can be used for different applications. So then it just becomes a tool, and that's what you use. And depending on what you need to be doing for your work, whether it's doing set out of the building or the reality capture of the project, then that's what you start to use the robot for, and then you deploy it accordingly.
And I think the interesting bit for us, and it's almost a byproduct, because we've not touched on here, but everybody's focus at the moment suddenly has turned to sustainability, and the fact you can have a battery powered robot on site, whether that's Spot or any payload platform effectively, but the scanner sits on there. I need a scan done. If we get the GNSS workflow integrated, then we can go out and do construction levels without sending vehicles out, without sending people out, without vehicles on the road, miles on the road, petrol, fossil fuel burn. We're looking at how we power our sites, and we're using hydrogen generators and hydrogen fuel sourcing. So actually, if you look at the full power cycle of it, our energy cycle usage, then it's a sustainable model as well, using this sort of platform and automation. It's all done from a hub. It's all done sort of semi-remotely. Not only are you taking people out of harm's way and off the roads, but there is a little bit of a benefit to the environment, which certainly for Balfour Beatty at the moment is a big focus for us. So again, it supports the use case deployment on construction sites.
For anyone that's interested in robotics, really just come at it with, just an open mind and being willing to explore, the different workflows and for how you could use it on your project sites. It's not something that's there to replace workers. It's really there to supplement the workers and just come at, with an open mind of how you can utilize this technology on your jobs.
So there we go, Pete. Henry McDonald talking to our two guests today, David and Mark, describing how Spot the robot and the technology works. It's mind-boggling, and it's here now.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think also listening to that interview there, anybody would definitely take from it that this is a positive thing, and it's certainly it's been done in a safe way. The right steps are being taken and the right control measures are put in place. The humans are still in control, Steve. There's no doubt about that. And we are able to use robotics to advance so many things that we do. It's very exciting. The insight there was amazing. Just even listening to the couple of aspects about, that confined space issue that they had, and they were able to send Spot the robot in there, and how safe it was, and how quick it was, and how accurate the surveys that Spot the robot is able to do. The couple of questions that I had in my mind before I heard the interview in terms of, how do humans and robots coexist on a building site? Like, is the robot just going to start marching past you and stand on your toe, or, that type of stuff? No, that's not going to happen. Like, there's obstacle avoidance. There's so many different things that they've introduced into the robot and what they do. I suppose we've really got to realize that this is humans maximizing their knowledge and inputting it into a machine which is able to communicate and collaborate with the other massively advantageous technologies that we have in terms of BIM modeling, programming our work and programming how we do things on construction sites. So, absolutely intriguing. And to be honest with you, I'm kind of excited about things now rather than looking at this as a negative. I think this could be very much a positive.
And clearly, Pete, I think we should point out how big this market is projected to get. In 2018, the global market for construction robots was $22.7 million US. By 2025, they're saying it could grow to 226 million. That's a 10-fold increase in investment in these robots, which is just showing the size of exponential growth that we're going to see in this. From your point of view, as somebody who is on building sites day in, day out, what are the jobs that you would like to see robots being able to do? Where do you think this could go? Obviously, there are certain use cases that are being focused on now, but we'll get to a point where this technology is affordable enough and adaptable enough that you can pretty much decide, okay, that's a task I don't want to do, none of my team want to do, we'll get the robot to do it. What would you like that to be?
There is loads of jobs that lads on construction sites would rather a robot did than they have to do.
And you can't pick ones around the house that your wife tells you you've got to do. It's got to be on site, okay?
I'd love to have a Peter Builder robot that can go around doing what I've got to do. Those figures that you just mentioned, are a clear example of how this industry is developing and being accepted within our industry. You've just asked me, how many jobs could be done realistically on site. I mentioned earlier on about seeing the video there. It basically was like a robotic arm on the back of a truck that was laying blocks very accurately. Obviously, it's on the back of a truck, so that can only be done at ground level. It's a robotic arm, so it could probably go up to 1 or 2 floors, but after that, it's not going to be able to, advance up a scaffold and those type of things. So there are certain limitations, but that would be a huge advantage. It takes the lifting out of setting up blocks. It takes an awful lot of scaffolding out. It obviously increases speed and accuracy and all those type of things. So that is something that would certainly be welcomed onto site. Like we've got so many machines on site already that take the heavy lifting out and the digging. Like, many years ago, foundations were dug by hand. And then obviously, you had some hydraulic motorized vehicles that came along, JCBs and other excavators came along and took the labor out of those jobs. You've got your bulldozers, you've got all of those type of heavy construction machines that are there, and they are going to start and already have started to link with robotics. Got to remember as well, the sustainability issue here. A lot of the robots are going to be battery operated, so therefore, reducing in emissions, and they're going to be basically more environmentally friendly than like maybe a petroleum or a diesel driven machine.
And I think that important, sorry, Pete, to jump in, but, that's an important point to make as well, because construction site workers may be thinking, we've already got, as you say, a lot of machines on site and they're all pumping currently, or a lot of them are pumping fumes into the environment. I mean, okay, you kind of, they're outside in that sense, but it's still a fumed environment there. But actually with these new greener ways of powering things, whether it's hydrogen fuel cells or whether it's battery operated things, that's going to increase and improve the overall working environment as well.
Yeah, well, we've spoken about the emissions that are directly related to the construction industry in terms of like up to 40% of the carbon emissions is coming from the construction industry, and we are constantly looking at ways to reduce this, and this is very much an obvious way, and we know that an awful lot of machinery is going towards electric, and I've absolutely no doubts that we're going to see huge advancement in that in terms of the power of the battery-driven machines are going to be matching where they are at the moment with diesel-driven machines, and then the battery life and all that type of stuff is certainly going to advance. New advancements happen all the time, and different challenges arise all the time when in construction and in everyday life. And, robots at this moment in time definitely appear to be a very good way of overcoming these challenges in a safe way. From what I heard today, I do think we're making steps in the right direction. And I think that, it's going to just keep on getting better and better, and it's going to get more accessible to the everyday person at all different levels of construction. So exciting times ahead.
Yeah, definitely. We're talking about a situation particularly for the construction industry, but I'm sure there'll be other things that are going on in other industries that will actually tie in nicely with construction as well. I was reading something the other day about robots and technology that can do all the recycling, for example, and can identify particular elements and strip them out and put them into the correct places. Something like that on a construction site, actually handling the waste from a construction site and effectively recycling it or teeing it up for the right way of recycling while it's on site. So actually it leaves site going to the right places. I mean, those sort of things will massively improve the construction industry's green credentials.
It's like what we said earlier. It's about creating an environment on the construction site which is sustainable, and it's about linking everybody together in terms of if you've got your waste leaving your site separated already, it reduces then the next phase that has to happen at the next area. Obviously, it will reduce the amount of waste as well, because if you're using something like a robot, you can usually analyze what it's done on a certain period of time, and you can also tell what materials it's separated. All of those segments of information can be used and analyzed to bring up a full database of what's happening on a day-to-day basis. And I really like what you said there as well, Steve. There's no doubt about it. Crossover from robotics in other industries can definitely be used, and vice versa. I'm sure there's something that people will come up with in construction. A construction-based robot or a construction-based machine can then cross over into other industries as well. It's real now. We're gonna definitely have to. This won't be the last time we speak about this, Dave. I think these advances are going to take place very quickly. I think we're going to start seeing a lot of changes in terms of what's been happening on our sites, because the challenges are out there, and maybe this is the answer to some of those challenges. So I'm sure we'll be crossing this subject again.
Yeah, definitely. And I think today we've certainly whetted the appetite of the inner geek of everybody. We've talked about the on-site possibilities, and people will be now thinking, wow, we're going to be working with all these great machines. But also, you mentioned data, and that will really excite the spreadsheet junkies who are listening as well. They'll be frothing at the mouth. They will with the idea of all this data coming into them. They can't wait.
Yeah, I want to be someday like the Mandalorian. I want to be walking around with that shiny suit on me and all the information coming into my helmet, me making all those cool moves that the Mandalorian makes. If I can do that every day, I'll tell you, I'll bounce out of bed and go to any construction site like that.
Fantastic. Pete, talk to you next time.
Cheers, Steve. Thank you, man.
And that's all for this episode of Constructive Voices. Please take a moment to share it with others who may find it interesting. Follow or subscribe to get the latest episodes automatically on your favourite podcast app, and rate and review the podcast if you can. You can also listen to the latest episode by saying, Alexa, play Constructive Voices podcast.
Here's Constructive Voices. Here's the latest episode.
And on our website, where there's lots more information too. That's constructive-voices.com. Don't forget the dash. Until next time, thanks for listening. You're really helping us build something.